Alright, so we got the 198 spoilers here, and this seems to be like a really good chapter. This might be the conclusion to Maki versus Naoya, possibly. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it kind of seems that way. Like, some crazy stuff happens, but let's get into it. Naoya traps the two men in his domain expansion, Imperial Palace of Time Sheath. They get hit by camera films, but they don't sense anything wrong and decide to attack. So before we go into it, let me catch you up to speed on what had happened in the previous chapter. So we saw Maki coming off of her power-up from her training with Mio in his sumo domain. And after coming out of it, she's kind of become enlightened and now has a greater understanding of things, but also has like super advanced senses and a better perception the way that Daido the swordsman does. But she's also like way faster now and probably even physically stronger, to be honest. But we saw that she was able to see like the atmosphere around her now and spot differences in temperature and air density and the scattered surfaces they create. She can like work around it, and she uses this to pretty much get the upper hand on Naoya and like knocks him into the ground, and Daido to cut him like straight in half, and afterwards Maki like kicks him apart, and it seems like it was over at that point. But then at the end of the chapter, Naoya like comes out of his cut in half metapod second form hollow shell thing, and he's seemingly is back to like his human form. Not human, but he's still a curse, but you know, his humanoid shape. Then he activated his domain expansion. We were wondering like, whoa, okay, so what is a projection sorcery domain expansion going to be like? Well, we're finding out here. And the name of it is Imperial Palace of Time Sheath, but it says that Mio and Daido are getting hit by like camera films, which is understandable. It's still on theme with projection sorcery because we know that the user kind of cuts a moment up into 24 frames that they see ahead of time. So, you know, frames of animation, camera film, it's all in the same theme. You know, projection sorcery. He explains his technique as he deals with them, cutting off the samurai's sword arm, and then gets frustrated and not being able to sense Maki's presence. Naoya's domain expansion makes everything he touches stop for a second, and once the person starts moving, the cells start falling out of alignment. Okay, so that's really interesting. So it seems like he just bypasses the whole thing about having to perceive the 24 frames in a moment and then touching you to make you fall victim to like the penalty of it, so that you freeze in a frame of animation, as to where he can just touch you and that just automatically happens, and then afterwards the cells start falling out of alignment. I assume cells mean frames. Hopefully I'll be able to make better sense of this once I see like the chapter itself. It's a little difficult to go off of these spoilers, but him cutting off Daido's arm is kind of like a big deal here, because I've been talking about in the previous reviews that I wouldn't be surprised if like one of these guys dies. I mean, I don't want them to, I want them both to live. I think they're pretty cool, but there are two of them, and I just wouldn't be surprised if like at least one of them died just for the sake of somebody dying, and then one of them just goes on with Maki and Oritoshi, which I've also been saying is kind of like been the theme of the Culling game so far with like the protagonist. But also his sword arm getting cut off here is necessary for Maki to get the sword back, because it's kind of like her thing and she kind of needs to use it, and Daido kind of needs to like not steal her thunder anymore. Like, he's kind of served his purpose here, showed the capability of ascending your senses, and then Mio showed her how to apply it. But first, guys, let's talk about gamer subs real quick, because it's currently September, meaning every week they're going to be dropping a new waifu cup design. Last week they dropped the teacher design, and this week they're dropping the samurai design. I think I like this one even more than the teacher one, to be honest. And waifu cups are great, not only because they're aesthetically appealing, but also because you can drink your gamer subs out of them. For example, you can take your Kaho's Guilty Pleasure, drop it in, shake it up, and now it's even more aesthetic. Check out the link in the description and make sure you use code BIGZ at checkout. That way you can get 10% off your purchase. Thanks, guys. But as for Naoya not being able to sense Maki's presence here, understandable. She has heavenly restriction, as we all know, which reduces her curse energy to 0 in exchange for her like becoming a superhuman. But more of this is explained later on, and it's way more interesting than what we originally knew. Because Maki has no cursed energy unless used as the outer layer of the domain, as seen in Megumi's fight in Tokyo, or entering willingly, she cannot be brought into the domain. Okay, so that's a little confusing at first, and I'll try to make as much sense of this as I can. Like I said, probably be able to explain this better once I actually see the page and the dialogue and everything, but from what I'm gathering here, Maki is more broken than what we thought, and heavenly restriction kind of like makes you almost immune to domains, almost. But Ducky says, as seen in Megumi's fight in Tokyo, I'm assuming he's talking about the Tokyo colony fight that Megumi had earlier this year against Reggie, where it said since Fujigoro forcibly enclosed the barrier by converting the gymnasium as his own domain, the enclosed barrier does not incorporate a can't miss attack. So unless like a special circumstance like that happens, or Maki like willingly enters the domain, like the way that Toji entered Dagon's domain, then she just can't be brought into a domain the way that like Mio and Daido have, which is like so crazy. Like you're essentially just shutting off like an entire aspect of a sorcerer's game. Maki stabs him through the chest with the sword Mai created, having a brief conversation with Mai about having done a good job of destroying and now fully understanding how to use the sword. So, all right, so this is pretty cool, and I'm not sure if she's literally talking to Maki here, although she might, because technically part of Mai is the sword. So through Jujutsu, there might be some lingering consciousness in there, possibly, unless this is just like a dream sequence and she's not literally talking to her, but I wouldn't be surprised if she actually is. And as for a good job of destroying, this is like kind of what they said to each other after the sword was made. It was like, now destroy everything pretty much. And I guess taking out Naoya here is like finishing the job, and also now fully understanding how to use the sword, of course with the help of Mio and Daido, and now she's become as strong as she needs to defeat Naoya, like we've been talking about for the last couple weeks. Like this is the end game here. Naoya gets angry, morphing back into monster form and trying to attack Maki, but she slashes him in half and emerges a pier to Toji. The sure hit skill was unable to hit Maki, as it was unable to recognize her, who had no cursed energy. Yeah, that's insane. Like the domain expansion like malfunctions because it itself cannot register Maki because of just no cursed energy to latch onto. And as for her slashing Naoya in half here, like I said in the beginning, this might be like the end. Like Naoya might be dead here. I'll have to see the page, but it might be dead. Like, I'm not really sure. I mean, it says preview the resurrection of a war god. That might not necessarily mean Naoya. This might be talking about Maki becoming a peer of Toji. Like, she's finally like pretty much on his level completely, which is something she's been chasing since she's gotten heavily restriction. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the spoilers. Like I said, hopefully I'll be able to go much more into this stuff in my review on Sunday once the official chapter gets released. But let me know what you think about Maki coming full circle here, becoming the peer of Toji, and is Naoya dead? How do you feel about this? Let me know. And if you liked the video, guys, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.